Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the therapy room. We are so sorry we're so late, but there were so many technical things happening. You wouldn't believe how many things we've had to overcome in order to be here. So we hope that you hadn't gotten too weary in waiting and left. I can see that somebody's joined. Let us know who you are. Welcome. We're so glad that you are here. Once again, we apologize for being late. How was your week, Natalya?
My week's been okay. Not too bad. I can't really complain much.
Yeah,
How's your week been, Joe?
terrible.
Terrible.
It was a rough week this week. A lot of challenges um, this
Oh.
week, but I'm glad it's Sabbath. So
Hmm.
yeah, but it was a tough week. Welcome
Yes.
everybody. We're just gonna go right into talking about dysfunctional family dynamics. Since we've
Mm.
kept you waiting for so long, we're just gonna go right into talking about it. And Natalia and I were talking just before we came on while we were solving our technical troubles that we were having. We were talking about some of the ways that they showed up. And one of the things we were saying was like in it's safe to say that in a dysfunctional family that lots of people are experiencing trauma. I think everybody's experiencing trauma, Natalia. One of the things I find is that the person who maybe is the one that has come to therapy will think that everybody else was fine and they're not. And I said, if you experience all the things that you experience in your family, that means everybody else was being harmed too, just in different ways. That isn't evident. So that's what we want to say. So we want to talk through some of the types of dysfunctional families, and we're going to start with the authoritarian family. What did we say about that one?
Oh dear. I feel like a lot of people could probably relate to that one.
Mm,
So, from my understanding, I believe that that would look as if, you know, if you don't do this, then
yeah,
you can get out of my house. That could be
yeah,
one way that how it might appear as authoritative, or you don't get a
yeah,
chance to speak. That communication is lacking. There isn't
yeah,
there's like a power of
yeah,
I'm the authority, you're the kid, shut up and listen to what I'm saying, and you don't really have a voice.
right.
That's what comes up
Yeah,
with the
yes,
authoritative,
I
dysfunctional
agree.
side of.
Yeah, do as I say kind of family. Do
Yes.
exactly as I say. Yeah. My father, when I was growing up, said he had one rule: obey and stay, disobey and go. That's very authoritarian, isn't it?
Wow.
I think Natalia's frozen. Uh, Are you there, Natalia?
Am I back? Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. I find that it does that if I have virtual background on, it kind of sticks. So that's why I don't put it on. The virtual background sticks. Um, but I was saying my dad, when I was growing up, said he had one rule: obey and stay, disobey and go. That's very authoritarian. And but he wasn't that kind of man. So,
Very.
but he used to say that all the time. So you think if
Mhm,
you do anything like when I perm my hair, because we had natural hair when we were growing up.
mhm.
And when I perm my hair, everybody was really afraid, really worried about how he would respond, how he would respond to that.
Mm,
Um, and he didn't do anything, but he wasn't so great when my sister did hers. So there's so many things that influence authoritarian parenting style. We know religion influenced
yes,
that, where
definitely.
there's a lack of just authority without love.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
like the spear the
and
rod, the spear the rod and spoil the child group.
hmm, definitely. And I feel like, obviously, I can only speak for my own culture, but I feel like in black families
Mm,
that tends to be the case a lot of the time.
yeah,
I'm not saying that boundaries aren't good. Boundaries are good. I think that it's important for children and adults and parents to all have their own roles in the house. However,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can turn into this kind of dynamic where it's dysfunctional. So,
Yes.
like I was saying,
Yes.
it's like it's a power thing, and it can be very belittling, and it can cause
Yes.
low self-esteem. You can end up
Yes.
becoming people pleasing. It can lead on to
Yeah.
many other, wounds, as we're discussing now with the core wounds.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Like it surely can, like, I like the ones you mentioned, low self-esteem, because sometimes lots of people don't understand the root of their low self-esteem. Um, or people who struggle with decision making, Natalia, comes from, I
mhm,
think, this type of dynamic where you're not allowed to make any decision for yourself. You're just gonna have to do what I say and do not what I do, just do what I say. And that can people there are lots of people who struggle with decision making because of that. They weren't allowed to make any decision, good, big,
yeah,
small, because the authoritative parent feels like they should do everything and make all the decisions, and the child, you're a child, so you must be seen and not heard, and you must do everything that I say. Study what I want you to study at university, have the job I want you to have, all those
mm,
kind of things that is harmful. But they call it strict.
yeah. It's just a word for this, basically,
Hmm.
the strictness. Um,
Yeah.
I wanna, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so with this one as well, with the authoritative,
Hmm.
dysfunctional dynamic, that can come with a lack of empathy as well,
Yeah.
because they don't see things from your point of view. You're just a kid. You're pick me, shut up, pick
Yeah.
me a lot of the times,
Hmm.
and it's like
Hmm.
a quiet child. Like you don't have a voice, and like you were saying, it can lead on to you becoming people pleasing, or you can end
Yeah.
up being someone who you don't have any authority in your own life when you grow up to be an adult, and it is hard for you to make decisions. You do struggle in
Hmm.
relationships. You struggle to set boundaries. The list goes on.
Hmm. List goes on, and you don't understand why you're struggling. You don't, and because when sometimes we talk about core wound and finding that what the core wound is, so we can heal. But some people
Mhm.
don't know that this is where it comes from, because they think, you know what, I am a good adult because of the strictness of my parents.
Mm,
And but when you start to pull it apart, you realize that, yeah, they were strict, and you may have made some choices in terms of career. However, we need to look at these areas that it's affected you in. And many people are afraid because they think that I'm being disloyal, or I'm
mm,
ungrateful, or I'm not forgiving. I'm all of those things, but it's not. You just need to process and heal from it.
definitely. That thing, the ungrateful thing,
Yeah,
you hear that a lot. It's like
yeah,
if you
yeah.
have an opinion, if you have your own opinion,
No, you
you're
can't.
ungrateful.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And it's not it's not always the case. Um,
yeah.
so another thing what you're saying as well, Joanna, I feel like a lot of times this passes down in generations. So
Oh,
that's
yes.
learned behavior from the parents, from their parents, and then from their
Mm-hmm,
parents. So it just
mm-hmm.
gets passed down. So it becomes
It
just a
does.
way of being, but you don't realize what it's about. And half the time it doesn't make any sense. So you find yourself in
Mm,
therapy and you're thinking, oh, so this is where it's come from. You start
yeah,
to make sense of
yeah,
things.
yes, yes. Lots of
Mhm.
layers to peel back to find that
Mhm.
core wound that we've been talking about. And we did
Mhm.
needs last week. I think in an authoritarian family, needs are not allowed. Like, you're not allowed, you might not be allowed to have needs. Nobody will, because emotions will be missing, wouldn't it? I think in
Mhm.
a family that is purely this style of relating.
Yeah,
It feels devoid of emotion to me when I think about it.
definitely.
Um, Yeah. Let's look at the passive aggressive family. I mean, we could say so much more about the authoritarian family. When those that are listening, let us know which parenting style you're coming from. Did you have to unlearn anything in your parenting? If you're a parent, I had to do a lot of unlearning in order to do things in a different way. There's a lot of stuff that I'm grateful to my parents for, and I love them, but there's a lot of stuff that I had to unlearn because I didn't want to repeat. And we have to be aware of it and be aware of it and be balanced. I think is the word I'm looking for. Maybe another word, that just be honest with how it impacted and some of the things that we wanted to do differently. So after the authoritarian person that is black and white, you can't make decisions for yourself, children must be seen and not heard, lots of punitive punishment, I'm going to say discipline that is beaten with sometimes physical harm that can become physical abuse, sometimes with words that are harsh and critical and judgmental, and people become, Natalya talks about low self-esteem, there's codependency that you develop in that system. There's a lot of sometimes emotional abandonment in the authoritarian because there's a lack of acknowledgement of needs because you're not allowed to say you need anything. And I wonder, Natalya, in that system, if a child is hurt, if they would feel safe enough to go talk to their parent about that hurt in a purely authoritarian family.
Probably not. And I guess this is where abuse could start as well, because you could be going through things and it's like, if I go and tell them what's happened, let's say like for children, for instance, let's say you're being bullied at school. If you go and tell your parent who you can't talk about these things with, imagine trying to open up and saying, you know, this has happened. It's like a judgmental, there's a lot of judgment that comes with it. So you might end up, I don't know about you, Joanna, but I've heard stories like from old relatives of if you get beat up at school, you're going to get beat up when you get home. Not beat up.
Oh, wow.
If you get beaten, I'm going to beat you. And it's like,
right,
you're not really allowed to be vulnerable. You need to just be this strong person, even though you're a young person, you're a child. It's like you're not allowed to show any vulnerability. You're not allowed to show any sign of weakness. It's not allowed. You must mirror your parents, mirror what you see, mirror your elders.
The hardness and lack of empathy and not needing anything and pushing through and that's what we must emulate. It lends itself, I think.
What do you think would happen? Do you think they would feel safe to go and say if they'd been harmed or anything like that?
No, I don't think in a purely authoritarian home that a child would feel safe enough to say anything because they'd fear getting blamed. They'd fear it was their fault. In that kind of home, there's no softness in my mind. There's no gentleness. There's just pure, everything is down the middle, do this or do this. And there's no room for mistakes. So if you didn't manage to toe the line as closely as you should have, then you're going to be in trouble. So there's no room for mistakes or even laughter. I see it as a place that is devoid of fun and joy. There's no outbursts of joy. I read once about a family that was at the table having dinner, and they had glasses of water on the table. A child reached across and spilled the water, and they got punished for it. So it's that kind of place I'm thinking of, where when you were growing up as children, that you weren't allowed fun and laughter and joy, and there were no hugs and soft words. It was more very devoid of sunshine almost.
That's what's coming to my mind. Like, there's no sunlight, no light. It's
Yeah, no
dark.
light.
Like I'm picking up
Yeah,
like a very dark place.
yeah. Hmm. But I see lots of people doing this and they don't know the harm that is being caused. And sometimes they're just repeating a cycle. Sometimes this
Mm-hmm.
almost gives you lots of stripes in some religious settings. If you're this kind of parent, you get a lot of stripe because your children will appear well behaved and well ordered when it could be nothing could be further from the truth. They're just afraid and don't feel free to express and be children. But in a place like this, they can
Sometimes
get
as
lots
well.
of hmm. Go on, Natalia.
Yeah, I was just thinking as well, Joanna. The only sad thing that makes me think about this is, as parents, when you have children, you're the
Hmm.
authoritative figure in their life. So
Yeah.
if you get that wrong, or if you see that you've made a mistake, and if you don't correct that mistake, this can lead on to
Hmm.
like spiritually, like your children will view God like that. Like he's
Yes.
this authoritative, harsh figure that doesn't,
Hmm.
you must do what he says, otherwise there's going to be conditions. Like it's not an unconditional love. It's like under certain conditions, if you obey me, then you get this. It's, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of like
Yes.
creating a place of that's not going to be good for the child spiritually
Yeah.
to grow.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because then God is not seen as
Like to
loving and
say it.
caring.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, he's not loving and caring and soft and tender. He wouldn't
Mm,
run through the fields with you and pick berries and play.
yeah.
He's just
Mhm.
like, as soon as you do anything wrong, I'm gonna punish you, kind of God.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for this comment. Joyce said there's so much high expectations in authoritarian parenting, so strict yet so much lacking of nurture and breeding ground for much dysfunctional behaviors. I totally agree.
Mhm.
And she also said it breeds many secretive behaviors from children due to lack of safe space to be authentic.
That's
So
true.
it lacks honesty as well, because you don't want to be disciplined and punished. Hold off.
Mhm.
There's a lot of, I think, when I work with, for example, young adults, and I see, you could tell when they're from this style of parenting because there's such a fear around decision making. They're not free to dream and to have goals that is independent of their parents. All their
Mm,
goals must be in alignment with what their parents want for them. And there's
mhm.
no room for for these children to pray and for God to direct and to lead. There's no room to use gifts and talents because the parents think this and this is what you have to do. And so
Mhm.
there's a you mentioned low self-esteem earlier, but there's just this
Yeah.
uncertainty about self and about the
Mm,
things that I can and can't do. And they're sent out into the world to university, expected to marry and hold jobs, and they do not have the skills to be able to do it.
mm,
Sure, these people can cook and clean, but the other relational skills are very missing,
yeah.
very missing, very lacking. As you can tell, I'm not a fan. So then
No.
there is the passive aggressive family. The passive aggressive family, where that passive aggressive, what comes to mind is somebody who's passive aggressive. They lack confidence and they lack assertiveness skills, and so they pretend that they're okay with something, but they're not really okay with it. And so it's the parenting style where the child is not really clear about what the rules are, but they'll be disciplined if they break it. That kind of space where there's lots of uncertainty around parental expectation. There's no conversation, there's no agreement. but you're expected to know certain things. Are you frozen, Natalya? Natalya is frozen. So thank you for those comments, Joyce. Natalya has dropped out, so I'm going to carry on. Then there is the enmeshed family. And I think it's similar to passive aggressive because there's no boundaries in either one of these families. Where when in enmeshed, what comes to mind is there's this expectation there that where parents sometimes feed off the behavior of the children, where if you are sick, then I'm sick. There's no distinction between who is the parent and who is the child. Everything is kind of just muddled. Lack of boundaries, no clear rules. Nobody knows what's going on. The child, there are no rules, no guidelines, no guidance, no instructions given. It's almost like a child that is raising themselves because the parent and the child, the roles are so intertwined. And then there is the disengaged family where the parents are there, they're probably physically present, working really hard, but is not emotionally involved or emotionally available for the children. There are no needs that are met. Maybe physical needs are met in terms of you might live in a nice house or there's a nice car, there are nice clothes, but the parents are not involved emotionally. You may, when you go home from school, you go home to an empty house because they're always working. They come home late and they leave early. There's no connection. There's no family meetings or family time or discussion around the table where we eat and laugh together because parents are so disengaged. They're not involved at all. And so though you get money to buy things, though you might have, as I said, nice things, but there's no parenting happening. There's no parenting happening in this family, in this parenting style. And so as we're thinking about core wounds and dysfunctional families, think about the kind of family that you grew up in. Was it a mixture of these? Natalya's back. Was it a mixture? You went for a bit.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it's best if you keep off the thingy because it tends to make it thick, I find, on StreamYard. Mm-hmm. So I was at the disengaged family talking about no parent that are present physically but not present emotionally. They buy food and clothing and nice house, and you might have money, you might even go on holiday, but mm-hmm. there's no connection. That's what, parents are disengaged with you. You don't have any place to take your worries to. There was nobody to listen to. And then there's the substance using family where, mm-hmm. and in some of these families, Natalya, neglect would happen as well. Emotional neglect sometimes, physical mm-hmm. neglect sometimes. Abuse, physical abuse would happen within the home. In these families, lots of, especially passive aggressive family, toxic behaviors. Maybe some narcissism is where maybe the narcissistic parent mm-hmm. would fit into some of these categories. And in enmeshed and passive aggressive, where you are expected to ponder to and meet the needs of your parents, do what they want because that will make them feel good or feel better or whatever mm-hmm. it is that is told to you verbally and non-verbally through behavior. So you're constantly seeking to please them and to do exactly what they want you to do. And then there's the substance using family. I mean, that one speaks for itself, I think, when there's substances involved in a family. Where I used to, when I was training as a social worker, I used to work with children from substance using homes. And that was always so heartbreaking for me because they never know what kind of mother they're going home to or who is picking them up at school and what condition they're going to be in. Will they be drunk? If they use, it would mean that they might not be supper when they go home, or they'll have to be caring for their parents. And of course, these are not judgment, because life is not neat. I worked in addictions for many years. I know that it's not easy, but we're sharing this so you can understand, as you listen, where your wounds come from and what are some of the things that you will need to do to heal, because it does show up in your life throughout the rest of your life. It does. Anything you want to add, Natalya?
Yeah, I missed the bit, when you were saying, literally, that's when I got cut off, when you were saying passive aggressive. I was
Yeah.
just wondering, how would that look? Sorry, Joanna, I might have missed it, but I just wanted to see how that would play out in this kind of dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, how that would, some of the ways would be like sometimes how conflict is managed, how instructions are given, whether boundaries are, there would be no boundaries, or the boundaries are not very clear for the child. So there's a lot of toxic underhand behavior that the child is, you must figure out that I'm upset. Like, I'm going to withdraw. I get some news about you. I'm going to withdraw and not talk to you for 2 days. And the child is figuring out, what did I do wrong to upset mom or to upset dad? So there's that punishment with withdrawal and silence. And as I said, I think sometimes in the enmesh and passive aggressive is where the toxic parenting, where the narcissistic parent probably resides, where their behavior is that there's no responsibility taken, there's no accountability for parents, they're never wrong, they don't apologize. There's a lot of blaming and shifting and projection, lots of dissatisfaction and harmful behaviors in this kind of family. And I think that's what we call toxic family. Can you imagine? Conflict is not managed in a home like this, because you're not allowed as a child there's no respect for you.
Yeah.
You were not respected at all. You were not seen as, sometimes some people don't see children as humans, I think.
Yeah.
The way you're spoken to. It's almost
treating
like you're
nothing.
Yes.
And that is the sad thing as well, because at the end of the day, you must treat everybody with respect. Yeah. So this is for anyone listening, like especially as a Christian as well, because your children are your little brothers and sisters in Christ as well. Although you're their parent, you need to treat everybody with respect and treat people how you want to be treated. So talking down to your kids, God will hold you accountable of that. Respect is something that should just be a foundation of all families, and it's about learning these things. I guess if you're ignorant, that's different, but if you're learning these things and you're realizing, you know what, I've got some toxic traits that I need to work on, then it's for you to do that work and to really look inside yourself and realize where you're going wrong too. So with that, it sounds like there's poor listening skills, because you're not really listening to your children. You're being passive aggressive. This can lead to misunderstanding and arguments. There's conflict. It can lead to you, because of the toxicness in the family, you can end up speaking about certain family members to other family members because you don't have the communication skills to speak directly. And then this tends to cause mistrust in families and tension. So
Absolutely.
the communication really is important. Not any
It
passive
is.
aggressiveness, not no underlining stuff.
No. And the ability to repair. I was listening with my son to on Sabbath there was Youth Day in the NEC, the North England Conference, for those who are not Adventists or not from the UK. And the speaker was Andrew Fuller, and he was talking about repairing. He said rupture and then he said repair. And I repeated it with him. And my son said, how did you know what he was going to say, Mom? Because I said that it goes together. And as he was talking about hurting his daughter and, you know, rushing home before she went to bed to apologize and to say sorry, because he wants to model repair. He wants to do that. He knew that he did something wrong and he wanted to acknowledge responsibility taken. He wanted to acknowledge that he'd done something wrong and apologize to her. Taking responsibility, not saying, oh, well, because you do that, that's why I do this. Taking responsibility for his behavior and his actions. And my son was listening and he said, Mom, he said, this guy really understands young people, doesn't he? He said, sometimes people say, I'm talking to you, young people. And he said, sometimes I wonder, are you? because they're not really. He said, this guy sounds like he really understands young people, Mom. And I thought, you know, if I ever meet him, I'll let him know that we were on YouTube, but you were speaking to a young person. So in passive aggressive enmeshed families, there won't be any apologies, Natalya. Nobody will be doing
no apologies, no accountability,
zero.
And this is so sad.
Very much
because
so.
you're missing out on the blessing of really connecting as a family.
Yes.
You're missing that. Do you know what I mean? Like, how can you? Sorry, I might be going a bit off point, but you cannot preach to your children or to anyone about repenting, of changing your ways, of following Christ, if you are not doing that yourself. Do you understand? People in your family, your family, they know you. So it's about taking that accountability and communicating and saying that you're sorry. You know, you're not always going to get it right, but these things can pass on for generations, as we were saying. These core wounds is the underlying suppressed emotions that have been there for years from childhood. We're talking about childhood now. This is where it all comes from. This is the root of it. And it's like everybody has a responsibility to take some accountability and to choose how they want to move forward, to create the kind of family dynamic that they want, that healthy family dynamic.
Yeah. And the things that we're listing so far is not healthy family dynamic.
Yeah.
And when our children gets to 18, 16, and they can vote with their feet and they decide that I don't want to have anything to do with God, and you know there's a sigh, mourning going through, oh, the children, the young people are leaving. When we are like this, then they don't want to have anything to do with it.
It's bye, Felicia.
So, yeah, yes, it is. It really is. It really is. They don't want to have anything to do with our religion because we are not being authentic in our religion. So we can be awful at home, awful authoritative, passive aggressive parenting, no boundaries, no responsibility taken, harsh words, no repair when we've done anything,
empathy.
and then no empathy, no emotional connection, and then we go to church and we're preaching and we're teaching, and our children are there going, hypocrite.
Yeah,
you know, that's what they see, that's what they feel, and then they, as soon as they have a choice, they're like, don't want it. So I think we have a responsibility, and not just as parents, Natalya, who are parenting, but as people as adults who are at church.
Yes.
Because the therapy room is, mostly for Christians. It's not only, but for adults who go to church, let us be authentic. Let us be respectful. Let's be kind. Let us model the fruits of the Spirit. That's
we
what
need to. We need to. And it's not about you being older. And I will challenge people, Joanna. Like, even with a family member recently, she said something. And I was like, no. Like, I know you're older, but if this older person said this to you, would you like it? No.
Yeah.
I said, well, exactly. It's not about age. It's about respecting everyone and treating people how you want to be treated. You can't speak down to people because they're younger than you. It doesn't go like that.
No, because they grow up.
That's what I mean. But think about it, like the granny, it's a generational thing. So an older person would have told you, you don't talk to me like this. I'm older than you. Don't be disrespectful. And then if you take that on, then then you start telling your children that. And it just continues going down. And that's just how it just continues. And anyone who speaks up or has any opinion or has a way of looking at things differently, it's like, you've got no manners, you're disrespectful. But no, you just don't understand. And you've got too much pride to really listen to what's being said and to really prayerfully think and ponder and pray and realize, you know what, maybe I've got some learning to do. We've got much to learn and much to unlearn too.
Yes. And that's why I believe in teaching our children the balance in respecting adults, but also speaking up for yourself.
Yes.
Even at the risk of appearing disrespectful, to represent yourself and to speak up for yourself. Some things you have to come and tell your parents and we'll advocate for you. But teaching them a balance of respect, but whenever you feel disrespected, for you to speak up for yourself, for you to not be afraid to say, I'm not okay with that. That's not true. I didn't do that, to speak up, because we can teach them to respect adults, and adults are not reading the same book. And so they don't feel the need to be respectful of children, and they will just say anything and say it anyhow, and it's not okay. It's not okay. Thank you, Naomi. Welcome. I just want to talk about passive aggressive again, because you had asked it when you came back on, and it's a pattern of indirectly expressing negative feelings. When somebody's passive aggressive, they're not nice to be around, are they? You just think, I know this person isn't happy, but they won't say it, and you're trying to figure it out, and it's not clear.
It's a lot of guessing. And I guess that could lead, if you're in a family dynamic like that, that could lead to the younger people, so the children, always being uncertain.
Yeah.
It's that unpredictable
insecurity.
Yeah, so it's a bit unpredictable. You don't know what version you're going to get today. You're unsure of yourself.
Yes.
Like I said, your self-esteem can be low because you're not getting. It's like you're always being undermined.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? You're always this is probably where people will maybe overthink, because you're thinking, did I do something? Was it me? What was it that I did? Was the rice cooked right this time? I'm not sure if it was. Did I clean properly? Was it? You're guessing all the time, wondering what's going on, because there is this, they're not expressing how they feel. They might be eating the food going, but you don't know what they mean.
Yeah.
You don't know what they mean. You don't know if they're unhappy or not. So these things can create deep wounds that are lasting people throughout their lives, and relationally they're not being able to function in their marriages, function in their friendships, function at work properly, wondering, why can't I connect? What's this void inside? How come I don't know what I need and I can't say it? And some of it comes back to being raised in a dysfunctional family home.
But don't you think though, Joanna, these same people, sorry to mention it again, but people that become the adults in these dysfunctional homes, they came from the same thing, that same passive aggressive spirit.
I believe so.
It comes from. And the sad thing about this as well is, if you are in this dynamic, if you are the passive aggressive one, it's so sad because no one ain't really going to want to be around you.
Yeah.
You're not going to have those connections.
Yeah.
That's the sad thing.
No, that is the sad thing. Yeah. It's and sometimes, people might think being passive aggressive is safe. It's the neutral people, the people that are on the fence. I cannot cope with the neutral people. I'm going to need you to be left or right. Tell me what's happening, oh yeah, because you can't please everybody. You have to be very clear in what you want, what you feel. And I mean, easier for me to do in some situations than others, obviously, for everybody. But when people are uncertain, it makes it really difficult. And if we even talk about attachment, Natalya, as part of this, we know secure attachment is not happening in a home like this. So if you grew up in a dysfunctional home, you're not securely attached to anybody. And then we know that then you're insecurely attached. That means your relationships are affected. And as you were talking, I was thinking sometimes some people might not want to accept that they grew up in a dysfunctional family. You think?
But you know, if you read through, if you go and research dysfunctional families, all of us actually fit some of these criterias. Yeah, may not be all of them, but if you be truthful and look, you see some patterns of your own home where you grew up as a child, and it's just about accepting that and just doing better, doing the work that you need to do to do better. Be conscious of it.
Yeah, because life isn't neat. I mean, I mentioned my father being and stay and disobey and go, but I still experience him as a loving man in so much as he could love.
Yes.
He wasn't harsh and judgmental and critical. We played a lot in our home, lots of laughter, but he had that line as well, you know, that you kind of push against when you get to 18, you push against it. So I think that the thing for us to do is to, if we can be okay in saying, this is it, these are the impacts, what do I need to do in order to change and to break that? Joyce says, I can imagine if you guessed wrong with the passive aggressive parent, you would have created another or added another issue. True.
Yes.
You just don't know. You just don't
know. You don't know what you're going to get.
Don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get. From one moment to the next, things are just like, do I do this? Should I do that? What should I do? I don't know. It's hard. But how can we break out of that, Natalya? What are some of the things that we can do? I was just researching. I thought, what are some of the things we can do? Because is it possible to break free from that kind of family dynamic and not repeat it in our own families, and not go to the other extreme where we're so liberal that our children again don't know what is what, you know? Like, say if you grew up in an authoritarian home, you might hate it so much that you go to the other extreme where you have no rules and it's free and everybody do what they want. It's just as damaging.
You need a balance, don't you?
You need a balance.
You need a balance, but I would definitely say that if you can recognize this, and if you can really, you know, if you really want to create that healthy dynamic in your own family, you have the freedom to do that because you know, and when you know better, you can do better. So in terms of you doing better, I guess it's about noticing your behaviors, noticing what you're lacking. I think it all comes down to the person, the individual, because it's you that can make the change. You know, you can't change other people, but you can make that change. Do you think it's possible to, that if you grew up in this, or if you see these things, that you can change it?
I think it is possible. I mean, we wouldn't do what we do if we didn't think that it could change the work that we're doing in helping people heal. Definitely can change. Sometimes it's when okay, so two roles. I was thinking of the roles that exist in dysfunctional families as well, where one person would be the black sheep. I call scapegoat, where one person would be the scapegoat in the family, where all the stuff is put onto them. And then one person is, they call it the hero, or the person who is the golden child. This one never did anything wrong. This one is bright. They go to school. They're intelligent. They always get good grades. Yeah. They are wonderful. But then there's you, you know. So and I think the scapegoat is the person who's the truth teller, not liking what's going on in their home, speak up, ask questions, push back, but those things are not liked. They're not. So I think sometimes the hero in a dysfunctional family can struggle to see themselves. They can struggle to see their own faults. And so they might not feel like they have anything to heal, but those patterns would still go with them. So I would suggest, if you grew up in a family where there was a scapegoat, check yourself. Are you the hero? Because you might need to do some work too, just as much
Mm-hmm.
as the sibling who was scapegoated and all this stuff. If you have a black sheep, and I call it scapegoat, but if you have a black sheep sibling, check yourself. Am I the hero? Why are
Mm.
they the scapegoat? What is it that they were doing and what was I doing? Because your family home was dysfunctional if there's a black sheep, right?
Yeah.
So
My black sheeps. If there's any black sheeps out here, I just want to send my love to you because it's not nice being it's not nice being a black sheep. It's very, very lonely. It can be very, very sad at times. Try and get some therapy if you can. But let me tell you something. When you come out the other side as a black sheep, it's very liberating and you will have a fantastic testimony to share with the world. So
ask her how she knows.
power to the
So,
black sheep.
it's just like you said, I'm sending my love to you. I'm sending my love to you, black sheep. Naomi says, for authoritative parents, spiritual abuse can take place. Absolutely, Naomi.
100%.
Spiritual abuse, 100%.
That's a
100%. And
starter
these are the
kit,
kids.
really.
It a starter kit. That is indeed, that's true.
Mm.
It just goes hand in hand. There is no
Mm.
way you can be an author purely, I'm going to say purely authoritative parent and not be spiritual abusive. And I wrote an article some time ago about, or as a video I did about not using the Bible to punish your children. Like, you
Mm.
know that you've done something wrong and you said, well, the Bible said. That's spiritual abuse. And you
Mm.
want them to do something against their will, and you said, well, the Bible says children must obey their parents, and the Bible said, and you use the Bible to beat your children. Spiritual abuse,
Mm.
absolutely, Naomi. And I think a lot of people need to become aware of that how they use the word of God in destructive ways. And children don't want to read the word of God after that. I think there's a difference between the authoritarian parent and the authoritative parent. Tell us, Joyce. Yeah. Tell us some more, Joyce, about the difference between the two. Well, we're going to talk about healing, how to break free. And you mentioned it, Natalia. I think therapy is a must.
Mm.
Just
It's
like,
not a
and
nice
once
place.
again, it is a must, and not because we are,
Mm.
not because we are counselors, we're saying seek therapy, but it really does help you to understand what happened, to process it, to
Mm.
heal from it, to move on from it. That's the path. Because sometimes there's depression, sometimes there's anxiety, suicidal ideation, all of those things come as a result of um okay come as a result of I lost my train of thought because I was reading what Joyce says. She's authoritarian is the one that uses the iron fist parent, whereas the authoritative parent has positive attributes. So a mixture of
Okay.
both. Thank you, Joyce,
Mm-hmm.
for that distinction. Yeah. A
I
mixture of
love the
both.
way
Because
as well, Johnny. You know when you said that it can go two ways. Sometimes it's
mm-hmm,
like you might grow up in a strict household, well, strict, authoritative, let's say what we're talking about now, and then you
yeah,
become very, very liberal, and there's just
yeah,
no boundaries, no authority, no nothing. You
yeah.
know, with the balance, I'm looking at that like the perfect temperature of the home. So
Mm, mm,
not
mm-hmm,
boiling hot where you're getting
mm-hmm,
burnt, but
yeah,
then not freezing cold either. It's like
yeah.
it's warm. You've got that balance, and that
And
is
everybody's
how God is
comfortable.
as well. He's both.
Yeah,
He's law and love. It's two
yeah.
combined together. You can't give one without the other. You know.
No, no.
So yeah, man.
In that kind of home, it reminds me of something I see Kashina talk about, and Kashina does preparing the home. I think Kashina, if you are listening, please put your link below this video because I forgot. And I just listened to her thing this evening, something she was asking me, and she talks about. She says, "Who does?" I saw her ask a question on her status. Who does family meetings? They're amazing, and her kids are young. Kashina's children. But having been able to sit and have meetings with your children where you can listen and not tell them how to think and feel, is really, really good, where you're able to listen to them and you're not telling them, no, you shouldn't think like that and you shouldn't feel like that. But you can hear how they think and hear how they feel. That really does help. So if we want to start changing things now, those are some of the ways, those are some of the things that we can start to do. If you recognize that you were just repeating what your parents did, but you didn't know how to do anything different, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And when you don't have tools, you don't have tools. When you don't know how to do it, you just don't know how to do it, how to apply it. So I have an attachment challenge that I'm also going to put the link below this video. It's 30 days of sending one audio every day for 30 days. And I did it in October, Natalya, and a woman was doing it and she couldn't move past day one for ages because the instruction is hug them for 15 seconds and ask, how are you feeling? And she couldn't do the hug part.
Wow.
But when you've never experienced safe touch, you don't know how to do safe touch. So that was a challenge.
That just really screams out therapy as well there. And, because, when you're saying listen to your children, like have meetings with them and listen to them, it really is important that you can try and check yourself, because today I'm here sitting here. I ain't got it all together. Yeah, I do counseling, but every day is a growing experience. Every day is trying to pray to get it right, to do better, for God to help. Because it is easy to say, listen to your children and try and do, like, be there for them and try and meet their needs. But if you haven't met your own needs, if you haven't worked out your own stuff,
that's it.
How can you give? So that's why, like, when we say, like, go and seek therapy, that is the importance of it, to make sure that you are whole and you are healthy, to be able to be available for your children or for your family, whoever is listening, in whichever dynamic we're looking at. You need to be emotionally available for them, but you need to make sure you're all right too, because you can't give what you ain't got.
Absolutely. I so agree with that. And if your children are at a certain age, you might want to consider family therapy. Find somebody who is systemically trained and do some family therapy where you can learn how to have that family meeting, because you might not have the skills, you might not know how to do it. So you might need to go learn how to do how to talk to each other in ways that are loving and kind, so you can start to repair the wound that you created before you knew better. And, sometimes, Natalya, I want to just remind people to offer themselves grace when it comes to this, because sometimes when we see the wounds that we've created, sometimes it can be so heartbreaking that it's hard. You don't want, you just want to hide from it. It's okay. Seeing it is the first place to change. And so some family therapy for everybody, depending on the age of the children, if they're older, they're never too old, by the way. They really do still want your apology. They might be too old and say, I don't want to go to therapy with you. Go on your own so you can learn how to speak differently, respond in a different way. If you have teenagers at home and they're rebelling, take them to family therapy. Everybody goes. Because sometimes people send the children and they don't go themselves. And I believe that that's not a right model, because the children come back home learning new things, learning about themselves into the same dynamic, and it's injuring them again. So everybody goes. They go, you go, everybody gets a therapist, right? And sometimes people go, we can't afford it. I was reading this post. I follow this couple on Facebook talking about how much they spent in therapy. They said, could we afford it? No, we couldn't afford it at the beginning. They took extra jobs. They sold a van. They did what they needed to do to ensure that they both had therapy. So people say, well, we can't afford it. Counseling is expensive. There is affordable counseling. There really is affordable counseling out there. And there are things that you can do to be able to afford to take your family to therapy. So many ways that you could make sure it's done so that you guys can move on
Definitely.
in a healthy
And
way.
I guess it's about, the value of it. Do you see the value of having that healthy dynamic?
Yeah.
Is it worth it? How much is your family worth? And pray to God. Seek and ye shall
Yes,
find. The Lord will
that's
provide a way. So
you will.
I'm glad you
And
mentioned that, John.
yeah, and people will say, "Well, I've forgiven them," and that's absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't fix the dynamic. So
Mm-hmm.
you have learned a way of relating that forgiveness won't fix. Forgiveness is an awareness and an acceptance that this thing was done to me, but forgiveness won't fix the wound. It won't fix your passive aggressive behavior or the authoritarian parenting style, or lack of boundaries, or all the ways that you've learned how to relate, because values are learned, not taught. And the events that have an emotional connection that's recorded in the brain stays there. And when we're triggered, anything that reminds us, it sends us back there, and we're enacting the same kind of behaviors that was done to us. Forgiveness won't fix that pattern.
Yeah, you're just back on the cycle again.
That's it. Just like around and
Mm-hmm.
round and round. So we really need to go investigate and wonder and ask questions and go listen to somebody else who don't know us. Just tell us about the story, and witness the story with us, and said, this is what I hear. Is this how it was? And so that we can hear it, and we can go back and we can learn and do something differently. It's possible. Really is possible. So therapy is one. If you are an adult child, sometimes you might have to create some boundaries. That means distance. If they're just not changing. If the passive aggressive narcissistic parent isn't changing, you can't change them. Your forgiveness won't change them. Your therapy won't change them. They might want to continue to harm you. And so you might have to forgive them and look after them from a distance if that's what you're choosing to do. But just know that the harm will continue because they haven't changed and you can't change them. That can be hard to kind of be with. Like they're not changing. Yeah. And the last one I was going to say is educate yourself. Read. Lots of books out there. Lots and lots of books out there. I heard of one today, Natalya, that I'm going to get. It's The Mother Who Couldn't Love. And I'm like, oh, that's a good one.
Oh, that sounds very intriguing.
I'll have to make that.
Are you going to link it, or who wrote that book?
Let me just find it. My supervisor told me about it today, and I thought, oh, I love it. I'm going to go find that. I think The Mother Who Couldn't Love.
That is it's just so sad, because I truly believe that every single mother.
Mothers Who Can't Love.
Mothers Who Can't Love.
Okay. Yeah, a guide for daughters, a healing guide for daughters. Yeah, Mothers Who Can't Love. It is a thing. I want to read. I'm going to read that. I have to read that in. That would be my April book. Or Mothers Who Can't Love by Susan Forward and Donna Fraser Glynn. I'm gonna see if it's on. If it's on. I like listening to books on Google Play. If you know of any books that could be helpful to the community, please say. Mothers Who Can't Love. No, it's not. Just The Emotionally Absent Mother. So that's another one, The Emotionally Absent Mother. Mothers Who Can't Love is on Playbooks as well. Yeah, so I'll listen to the sample of that and get that for my April book. So those are some resources. They're not just extensive resources. I'd encourage you to read our own attachment. There is Attached by Peter Levine. as well. And I forgot the book by Susan Johnson, but lots of books on attachment will help you. The emotionally immature parent is a good one as well. That will help you to understand that kind of dynamic and what you got, what you didn't, and some really good ways to move forward. Okay. Anybody have any comments, any questions that anybody have before we wrap up? While you're thinking about your questions, at Wounds to Scars, and I know Natalya does things too at Christ Therapy, and you can find us at woundstoscars.com or Christ Therapy. What's your Christ Therapy's?
.com.
Is that .com? .com. And you can book a counselor via those websites as well. But we have lots of blog posts, videos. There's a podcast here on this YouTube channel called Stories That Shape Us. You can also find it on Spotify and on Apple. That covers a lot of these subjects as well. So you can go back and listen and get some tools that will be able to help you in the short term. Also, our conference and our retreats, our groups does help. Our inner child healing group, specifically for the core wound that happened in childhood from this kind of family dynamic, the inner child healing group. I only have 3 women in there at a time because it's such deep work that we do. I don't make more than 3 in there at a time. Okay, any questions, anybody? So that's christtherapy.com and woundstoscars.com. When will the Zoom session start? Oh, okay, when will the Zoom session start, Natalya?
Tell them if you could send us a message, we can send you some more information on that.
Okay, did you hear that, Naomi? Send us a message and we'll send you some more information. I was thinking it can't happen on a Friday evening because it would be too late. So it would have to be a different evening. But it would be for people who join the community. Those are our websites. I've put the websites in the chat.
And so guys, everyone who's here, if you could like the video while you're here and subscribe to the channel too, please.
Thank you. And share the video. Yeah, like, subscribe, share. Thank you very much. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Joyce. I know you're here. I don't know who else is here. Do you want to tell us who else is here? And so we can say thank you before we wrap up and before we go. Don't forget, follow the podcast as well. Stories That Shape Us, lots of resources. I feel like I don't want to leave people on kind of like a low note because of the content of what we were talking about. I want people to know that there is hope, and that though this might be the dynamic that you're familiar with, that there is hope. And that's why we're here doing this, because we want to reach people perhaps who we've never met, but also we want you to know that there is hope. Oh, I see you. Oh, thank you, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
She's a beautiful, beautiful young woman, is Kim. Thank you, Kim. Oh. All right. So we want people to know that there is hope, and that things that we get healing, and there's changes possible. All
Definitely.
Right?
And everyone who's here, thank you for joining us. And you wasn't here by chance this evening. Yeah. So we hope that you can take something away with you tonight and really have a think about this, and maybe even pray on some things. If there was any triggers, if there's anything that came up for you, have a good think about that. Get interested in that. Pray on that. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yes. Naomi is naming some books, and I think that's a really good one. 5 Love Languages. And one of my personal favorite, It Didn't Start With You. Absolutely love it, Naomi. It's good, isn't it?
I'll take note of that one, Naomi.
Yeah. It really is good. It explains so much, really. Thank you for sharing these resources, Naomi. It's by Mark Woolen. It's the author of It Didn't Start With You. Okay, everybody, have an amazing evening and a wonderful weekend, and we will see you on Friday. We probably will, I don't know, maybe attachment, Natalya, what do you think? Because sometimes when things come up...
Next Friday is Good Friday, isn't it?
You want us to have a day off?
I don't know. I wasn't suggesting. I don't know. We'll have to have a talk about that. But yeah, I was just thinking, I don't know, maybe something around, because we've been talking about families. Let us know your thoughts on the whole family thing. Like,
right.
I don't know. We haven't discussed about the next title, but I feel like it's needed. And I don't know, like my thoughts are still on the black sheep.
You want us to dive a little bit deeper?
I would like to talk about the black sheep. I feel like there's a lot of black sheeps out there, and the heroes get enough credit, and they're all right. The heroes are still going, they're functioning okay in this world, but the black sheeps, they're in the corner. Yeah. And my heart is very dear to the black sheeps. So
your heart's very dear to black. Well, let's talk. I don't think the heroes are doing well, but they just think that they are. I think they're really good with their people-pleasing behavior. The black sheep is like absolutely not doing it. so the heroes are just good at pleasing and hiding. But let's do the scapegoat person in the family, the truth teller, we will call them in the family, because I think that's what they are. They're the truth teller. They're like, no more, not doing this, and then everything gets hang on them. So let's do that. How do people feel about that? Thank you, Naomi. Happy Sabbath to you too. All right, we are going to wrap up. We always so appreciate your presence here and that you talk to us. Your comments. Thank you for the resources that you've shared, Naomi. Thank you for you, Kim and Joyce, and I don't know who else is here, but we really appreciate you. And we will see you next week when we are going to talk about the black sheep. The truth. We're going to talk about the truth teller in the family. That's what we're going to do. Take good care. Have an amazing weekend.
Bye, guys.